Welcome to Entre News, a production of the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Dr. J.D. LaRock, the president and CEO of NFTE, the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, and welcome to yet another season of Entre News, our webcast and podcast. We're bringing you closer to the world of youth entrepreneurship and alumni entrepreneurship, which is what brings us to our guest here today. Welcome to Emilia A, a distinguished NFTE alumna and an entrepreneur in her own right. It's great to have you with us, Emilia.
Thank you so much, Dr. JD. It's a pleasure to be here, always with NFTE.
So I have to start by mentioning that you and I were both together when NFTE had the opportunity to ring the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange. And you were a part of a group of about 80 or so that we had students and educators and alumni like you, financial supporters, board members, and just friends of NFTE. I will share what that was like for me, but I would love to hear what that was like for you.
For me, is like being in Disneyland. And I think I was actually running through there right before we were on our way out. And I said that out loud. And one of the staff people of the stock exchange was like, "That's great. You're welcome. You're very welcome." And I was like, "Oh man, they're so courteous over there. They do things with such class and taste." And I just am so inspired and encouraged by the relationship between the stock exchange and NFTE in particular, because it is, part of who I am, to say it, boldly. NFTE is a great shaper of my mentality, what I've chosen to do with my intelligence, my entrepreneurial spirit. And the stock exchange is such a living story and testament to the entrepreneurial spirit. So it's kind of a perfect collaboration, a perfect match of intentions and seeds for the future, but also seeds of the past. And to be there, especially in today's times, I guess no matter what times we live in, it'll always be wild times, right? So, but we're in another one of those wild times. And in particular, the stock exchange has been in the news a lot lately, and the markets and what the economy is doing. But to be there in person and in community with people who value what the power of ideas is, and the prosperity within us all, what that can do and how that can change the world and solve problems and bring people together and change lives. I mean, this is so much of what I dream about and want to do through everything in my life. And it is just such an honor to be invited by NFTE and to be connected with the organization, but also to see again how much NFTE has grown in leaps and bounds, and to see the smiles on the kids' faces, young people, the youth, the young entrepreneurs of the future, to see their smiles and hear their stories and know that they're going to remember this moment for the rest of their lives. It's just, it warms my heart. And we can use all the positive news we can get these days, huh?
I bet when you were there, you maybe were thinking back to your own NFTE experience and relating it back in the faces of the young people who were there with us. I want to get to talking a lot about you today and what all the things that you're doing, but start us off by telling us about your own NFTE experience. How did you get connected to us? Where were you in school? What was that experience like? And we'll go from there.
Oh, yes. So I was in the NFTE program in 2002 in a program at the High School for Economics and Finance, which is still connected to the program, which I love. And I got to actually meet a teacher, a current teacher there. So that was a wonderful conversation and connection. But our NFTE run was through a class called Welcome to Wall Street. And it was offered to freshmen. So your first taste of high school, you're in there, and boom, they put you in this class. And they kind of sneak NFTE up on you. You don't really know it's coming, but you're there, and they say, "Okay, we're going to teach you a little bit about this entrepreneurial case studies and learning about the basics of marketing and ideation and inventory management. And then we're gonna do, this thing where we give you all at the time, they gave you $25 and you started an actual business and you had a partner. And so well, for one thing, there were many classes I was not enthused about in high school, which I'm sure many people can relate to. But the Welcome to Wall Street class was the class for me, like early and on time, every time for this class. And once we got through the initial period, and then suddenly these people were in the classroom telling us about this thing called NFTE, and that they were going to give us this money to start an actual business. And I was like, whoa, really? Okay. And so me and my partner started a belt business, selling military style belts that we would get from the wholesale fashion district in New York, and sell retail. And very quickly, I realized that it wasn't about the products we were selling. It wasn't about the services. It was about the story, the solution, it was about the human interest of what we were doing. And so I realized that the belts, for example, they would install quicker and they looked neater, and the colors they came in could, really amplify and make a statement for your look. And in that program, they also had this big emphasis on dress for success. And so the belt seemed to like coincide with that. And then I could get really creative with it. So I started tapping into like being a belt connoisseur of sorts. And I sold so many belts, Dr. JD. Oh my goodness. In school, out of school. And then I segued into t-shirts, and that went even bigger than the belts once that saturated. And my partner quit very early. They just weren't enthused, which goes to show even in the real world. Yeah, everyone's not meant to be an entrepreneur, and that's okay. But for those of us who are, it's actually something that's quite natural to many of us. And the spirit of enterprise and commerce and enterprise, again, free trade, self-determination, these are very natural things. So, and for me, especially in my family, in America and in Uganda, very, very natural. So I paid my partner what they came in with and what they made with me. I paid NFTE back their $25. They said we could keep any money we made after we paid back that, which was like, I didn't think they were going to say that. So I was like, what? We get to keep the money too? Dr. JD, I made $136 out of that $25 investment. And I was like, I did this with belts. Whoa. And it was like light bulb. I said, this seems to me, I didn't say it in these words at the time, but this seemed to me like a key to life, a key to success in anything. This was like, what was I doing? I was connecting with people about their needs and wants. I was anticipating their needs and wants. I was listening to them, what their life was like, how my product or service could help them in their life style or life path. I was meeting them where they were. I was making special cases for special clients. I was creating clients. I was establishing and maintaining the clients I had. This was a key to life. This was a key to everything, networking, marketing. No matter what I wanted to do in life, I knew these skills, soft skills, and the actual application of functioning and operating as a business would take me through any field I wanted to go. So I'm sure that was like a 20-minute explanation right there.
No, I loved hearing you talk
Yeah.
about it. And it's, I mean, all that from belts.
From
Isn't that
belts.
amazing? And it's not a surprise. I didn't know what your nifty student business was, but frankly, I'm not surprised to hear that it was belts and then it turned into t-shirts, because one thing I have noticed about you is that you have a highly cultivated fashion sense. Whenever I see you,
Thank you.
you have clearly thought about your outfit and how you're putting yourself together, including right now as we're speaking.
Oh, thank you.
And so that seems very natural. And that's another thing about nifty businesses, that
Mm,
students realize that they can take something that is authentic to themselves, which they may
yes,
not think about being at all connected to a business like fashion,
yes,
but actually turn it into a business. So you are a creative person as well. And let's fast forward to the present, because you are a hip hop artist. You've got
yes,
a creative alias, Emily MC. You are a
yes.
creative person. So tell us now what you are doing as a performer and as a creative entrepreneur in your world today.
Yeah. So I can't help but talk about Nifty even more, even in my answer there, because fast forward to me reconnecting and participating in the global pitch competition that we had just a few months ago. I was so amazed to find that pretty much all the businesses in that particular module were all software based and were like tech affiliated services or products. And again, mine was belts and t-shirts. So I was like, wow, this is, you talk about evolution. This is amazing. They were doing like medical bracelets and fitness applications and music education apps. And it was just amazing. So I say that in connection to me being a creative person, because largely a lot of what I do now, even with my current work at A&E Networks, is I became a tech person and a software person through my creative inspirations. And so in hip hop, for example, I knew I wanted to make music and I wanted to be a visual artist, right? Because when you make music, you also make music videos. Since social media has grown and evolved way past anybody's initial ideas of what it was supposed to be, now there's even social first content. So we're on a podcast right now, right? There was radio before, but now so many of the podcasts have a visual element, or understand that, you know, if you don't have one, you're gonna want one. If at least a graphic, right? So like many people out there and like many entrepreneurs, we find ourselves with little to no budget. And what do, right? And the question I think that makes a lot of us really great at what we end up doing is we ask ourselves the question, what can I do with what I have? You know, and how can I use what is around me or what I do have an access to or could get my hands on to create and deliver something on a level with a quality, or at least the intention of what it is I want to give, right? So I knew I wanted to make music. I needed music, but I didn't have a studio to record in. I didn't have the money to pay engineers. I didn't know about the production process itself. So I ended up going to like shadow and work for trade to trade studio time at several recording studios. And in doing that, I ended up learning about audio engineering and technical support of sound and theater, which I was also doing from being in a lot of youth programs before that were musical theater orientated. Then in going to do visuals, you learn about video editing. So I threw myself into free editing courses at something called the Manhattan Neighborhood Network that we have here, where you learn a trade in media education, in my case, field video production and basic video editing. But then you're also working in a studio where it's public access television, and you become a producer if you so choose. So now I not only had those skills, but now I was able to start working on actual shows that got on television. And pretty soon you start stacking those skills up solely for the purpose of, I want to make music and I want to be a visual artist, but I don't have the money or the know-how. So let me get the know-how and stack up the budget that I can and start talking to people and meeting people. And pretty soon you find it, especially for the listeners listening who may find themselves in that situation, you keep following your skill set and building what becomes your niche, just following what you love and following what you want to know more of and meeting more of the people who are already doing what you love to do. And pretty soon you find yourself with quite a resume. And that turned into getting my first corporate role at NBC as a video editor for the NBC News Archives division, which turned into working for another streaming company, which turned into A&E. And all the while I was working on this book and working on this album and using the money from those jobs to help fund all these projects. And because I had done so much diligence on learning about the processes behind all these things in these different industries, because with a book and an album, you're talking about book publishing, which is one completely different sector, and music publishing and distribution, because we did physical albums too, and that's two completely other different things. But in conclusion of all that, I got all this work done and was able to come to tables with the publisher I have now and with an independent record label that scouted me because they had been watching me do all this work for several years and seeing my visuals on social media, and knew that I knew a lot of people in the industry because I had been running around trying to get this know-how and just shadowing. So it really does, people say like, oh, it's all about who you know and you got to have money, and you can really build from anywhere. And that's the beauty of an entrepreneur, is we will find a way to use what we have and to use our own creative intelligence to make and create something out of nothing.
The best definition that I've heard of entrepreneurship is the ability to create something and move something forward, irrespective of the available resources. When I
Yeah.
listen to what you've just said, it's obvious that you were very entrepreneurial and very resourceful in identifying those pieces around you, just like you said, that could help you get the learning that you needed to know. It's so interesting that you mentioned this because we think a lot here now at NFTE about the future of education in the US. And one of the big issues right now is parents and families all over the country are calling the old ways into question. There's a
Yes.
lot of doubt that traditional education is serving everybody well. There's a lot of interest in a kind of education that connects young people to something authentic and something that's relevant to them.
Absolutely.
Also something that helps them get economically successful. And when I hear your story, what I hear, if I have it right, is that yes, you were in high school and you pursued your education in a formal way, but you were also looking around in your neighborhood, in your borough, for
Absolutely.
other programs, other resources, other connections. You knocked on doors, you did the homework, you found out those opportunities, and you kind of put something together, your own self, that was its
Yes.
own kind of education ultimately. There are a lot of people, a lot of families right now who are interested in doing that kind of thing. And even when we look at certain states, they're beginning to move in that direction because they see it as a way to do for their children what you did for yourself. So that's fantastic. Uh,
Amazing.
let's talk about your book and what's behind you. So uh,
Yeah.
you literally wrote the book on the hip
Yeah.
hop experience. It's called
Yeah.
Y'all Not Gonna Make Me Lose My Mind, Notes from a Hip Hop Unicorn and Suicide Survivor.
Yes.
By the way, just to establish my street cred, I recognize as a take on a DMX lyric,
Yes, Dr.
just so
J.
you know.
Yes.
Don't be fooled, viewers and listeners, by the suit and the tie. I'm from
Woo!
Queens. I know about
The
DMX.
record has been set straight, ladies, gentlemen, and others. He knows. He knows. He's hip. He's got it.
So
Yeah.
tell our viewers what you want to tell them about the intersection of hip hop and life as a creative person and mental health, which is another theme that you're really interested in.
Thank you so much for asking. Yeah, this is the quintessential passion project that I didn't even know I was gonna write until I got that little voice that said it's time. And I said, well, what do I write about? And they said, you've already got it in your notebooks. Go back in your notebooks and you'll find out there. So hip hop is one of my biggest inspirations in life. It has tapped me into parts of myself that I didn't even know would resonate with me highly. Hip hop has so many arms. A lot of people know about what we know as the 5 pillars of hip hop, and emceeing, DJing, graffiti, or visual art, things like this. But there's another pillar that doesn't get talked about a lot, and it's actually knowledge. And knowledge was actually something infused in the original fibers of hip hop culture. And so I was very emboldened to contribute to that canon, especially now because hip hop education as a field has also been growing in the last few years. And I felt that one thing that hasn't been established more of in that sector is mental health, and in particular, suicide prevention and awareness, because especially from the pandemic and the various lockdowns, and how so many communities and homes and families were just shaken to their core by the shakeup, really, of everything. But in that time, suicide rates did go up, and across all demographics, but in particularly with youth and young people. And it is the second and third leading cause, I think, by the last CDC stats of death among youth ages 10 to 14, and then 15 to 19, which is, it's very startling. It's very startling. And people will say, well, where are the parents? What's going on at home? But like, yeah, think about where the parents have been. We've all been in a whirlwind, and we've all been, not all of us, but many people have had to be working 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And so, yeah, people aren't home, or people are stressed and tired and overworked and underpaid, and their bandwidth is pushed to the limit a lot. And there's also so much taxing on our energies day to day, so many distractions, so many things that make us question ourselves. And are we enough? Are we doing enough? Is my work satisfying enough? Am I a good enough parent? Am I a worthy enough daughter, sibling, employee? All these things come back to mental health, and come back to the health and wellness that often gets neglected. And in hip hop, there is also a history of talking about these things, but it's still largely silent, largely taboo, like the rest of society. And simultaneous to that, hip hop also is one of the largest, I'd say it's one of the most impactful case studies that we have on the impact of the entrepreneurial spirit, because so much of hip hop's ascent into from being a passing trend that people literally wrote in the newspapers about as a trend, as something that would fade out and was, obscure and niche in the late 70s, became a billion-dollar global industry that is everywhere, and it is in everything, and that's in less than 50 years. And I think people take for granted a lot, even people within hip hop, how hip hop has been so infused in every single part of society and level of society in less than 50 years. And there are very few things that one could list that has done that. So it is a very powerful culture, a very powerful music genre. Of course, there are positives and negatives in anything, but the sheer power of its ability to bring people together and to raise energy levels and to bring awareness to things, and even to sell products and to market things and to teach is extremely, extremely significant. And so what I wanted to do with this book was to tell the story of how hip hop has gone with me in every field and in everything I've done, but also how it has been esteeming me and moving me to a greater sense of my own health and wellness as I went through my battles with depression and anxiety, and being a suicide attempt survivor, which I am. I was about 19 years of age when that happened. And so that's also why I have such a care and a concern and a consideration for what young people go through every day, and then also what families and adults are going. I'm always asking people, how's your spirit? How you feeling today? Because I can just read how hard people work, and it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how much family you have, how much love is around you. There are so many people who die by suicide, who have money, who have family, who are in healthy relationships. But it's not about that. It's about the spirit. It's about the mind. It's about what the heart and soul is going through. And to your point about education, there is so much that has separated all of us from the fact that we have a soul and that we are human, and our energy can be drained, and we need to rejuvenate it. We need to be pouring into ourselves, and we need to be addressing the things that hold us back from our own greatness. So I sought to do that in a manner. It was a little bit of a test, definitely, because I was writing a book that for me had not existed before me. I call it a creative nonfiction because it's not a memoir straight up. It's not a linear story of my life. I'm a very private person. I really don't want to write about my life, but I wanted to use all these colorful adventures that I've been on, because I was a child performer and I was the only girl on my football team. And then I did NFTE and I was an entrepreneur and I was traveling and performing. And then I'm in hip hop and now I'm in tech. And I wanted to use the examples of the highs and lows that have been seemingly intense for me, maybe more than average. But I wanted to use those as real examples to show that I have seen the light and the dark of so many sides, and I have met all types of people all across society in multiple countries, in multiple tax brackets. And I have seen the humanity in us all. And I've been able to do that largely because of my clinging on to my creative inspirations and to my loves like hip hop. So I wanted to do that and give us some light in the darkness, so to speak.
There's so much to address in what you just said. First of all, is
Thank
there
you.
a place that they can go online also to if they would like to read your book?
Yes, so the book is available in all major book retailers. So if you prefer your Targets or your Walmarts or your Amazons, it is there. It was published by Wahida Clark's Innovative Publishing. She is a Black independent publisher, so it is also on her site directly. And you didn't hear from me, nifty audience, but if you somehow don't have or want to put up the funds to get the hardcover or the ebook, it actually is in several libraries, because we that was something I really wanted to make sure that it was accessible. So you can borrow the ebook or the hardcover from something like 18 libraries across the country, also a couple in Canada, and I think we're also in a UK system, and actually the National Library of Jamaica as well.
Oh,
So
wow.
you can look there, and I just finished recording the audiobook. So we're getting
Ah.
ready for that to release. So I know some people they're like, can I listen to it? And I'm like, you can now. So
Now
that's
you
coming
can.
up.
Now you can. And what you said in your previous response just resonates with me. You know, we actually happen to have a number of people at Nifty, myself included, who are real music lovers. And my tastes span a wide number of genre. And
Oh, me too.
I say to my colleagues, music is so powerful because um, music is a place that allows you to address and feel the things that the everyday world doesn't always allow you to address and
Yes.
feel.
Well said.
And so it is it can be a very validating and affirming and comforting force. I know it has been for
Mm,
me in my own way. And so what you also said about hip hop being a business and a cultural force is absolutely undeniable. I myself was born in the mid 70s, and like I said, I'm from Queens. And so,
yeah,
I grew up, I came
that's a
of
deep
age as
history
hip hop
there.
itself was coming of age.
Yeah.
And just as, it's interesting, there's a parallelism between the growth of hip hop and the growth of Nifty. Hip hop,
Yeah.
both founded in the Bronx, by the way.
Hey.
Uh, I think you know that about Nifty's origin story. And then, both have grown to become truly global forces in Nifty's case
Yes.
now in 35 countries and growing around the world. And, those travels, my work at Nifty now takes me around the world on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And you notice very, very
Yes.
much the cultural influence of hip hop all around the world. I
All
might
around the
be in
world.
Ireland, or I might be in China, or I might be in
Mm-hmm.
Singapore, and you see hip hop among other aspects of American culture. So you're right.
Yes.
Something that started from nothing is now really global and everywhere. And it's something that provides a lot of comfort and support and wisdom to people. I'll tell you a little story. I'm
Please
so
do.
my wife and I just went to the Mary J. Blige concert the other day, and I
No,
know
you
she's not
didn't.
she's not hip
I was,
hop per se. Yeah, she was
no,
on my
that's,
wife's bucket list, but she's
oh my
she's
goodness.
one step over from hip hop, right? But the reason I bring it up is that her fan base, which as you probably know, is very, very devoted. A lot
Mm-hmm.
has to do with how she's channeled her music to
Yes.
share her personal journey. And in the last 20 years, I would say most of that has been around her mental health journey and her personal
Yes.
growth journey. And in the concert, they kept showing videos and she kept singing songs that exemplified that journey, which is why
Mm.
music and creative things can be such an important thing for young people and adults throughout their lives. It touches
Yes.
us in a unique way, and it's also something that is a business. So
Mm.
that's a powerful observation because sometimes people think, you know, this, that zone of our life, that zone
Right. It's
of
just songs.
existence,
Yeah.
it's different from business, but actually
Yes.
not the two,
Oh,
and it can be a very powerful thing, and it can be a thing that actually, allows the artist involved to earn a lot of money and
yes.
sustain a creative career. I want to
Mm-hmm.
take it back before we wrap up to something else
Sure.
you mentioned, which was you being at our global competition, which was also at the New York Stock Exchange. And I've got to give a shout out to the
Yes.
Stock Exchange
A
and
big shout
all of the
outs.
folks who have done so much to give opportunities to Nifty and our young people, in this case, around the world. So we had representatives from about a dozen of our 30 plus country partners competing,
That's
um,
right.
Israel,
Greece,
Ukraine,
Italy. Yep.
Greece, Switzerland, so many countries. And you interacted with some of them. You spoke about their
Yes.
businesses and how they're very tech oriented in many cases. But as someone who is a successful professional and entrepreneur, having done the Nifty program, I'm just curious, when you were interacting with our students today, what questions did they ask you? What advice did you give them?
Yes, I don't want to leave anyone out, so I don't want to shout out names, but if you were there, I just want to say hello. I remember each and every one of you at UBS in particular, because we were able to actually sit at the tables and speak with each other one on one. What a beautiful day. But so I was asked, first of all, I was asked, how'd you make that $136 from the $25? And I said, that's a great question. So yeah, so they want to know how I made that money with the Nifty program. They were asking me about the book, because of the book and the album, and I had the physical book on me, so they were looking through it, and so they were asking me, was I involved, like how was I involved in the making of, like, did I just write it or was I involved? And I happen to have been involved in every single facet of making this book, including the cover art and the decisions about the fonts and the illustrations and the website, the contracts. Even with my music album, I drafted a lot of the contracts that the agreements that we ended up signing. So they were asking me about that, and we also talked a bit about social media management and content creation, because pretty much most of the visuals and posts that you see from my digital presence are all curated, created, edited by me. So they were asking me about any tips I had for them to make social media accounts for their businesses, and kind of best practices of what to do with that. And I'll just mention quickly for those who are listening that keep in mind that each platform is designed a certain way to meet people in a certain way. So you don't want to have one set post that you're going to post the same on every platform. You want to tailor it to each. So I said, I might post the same thing on LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter or YouTube community posts, but I'm going to have a bit of a different copy for each one, or the graphic may be different sized, or I might not opt to use video on LinkedIn for a certain thing because videos tend to perform a certain way for certain topics. And so these are the things you're going to do your homework about. So yeah, I think that's about what we covered. Oh, they asked me about their specific businesses, the viability, especially because one was centered around music. So they were asking me, in my opinion, did I feel that there was a demand in the music community for their idea, or should they kind of pivot and move on?
We really appreciate you staying connected to our community and getting connected to our current generation of young people. Thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to subscribe to Entre News. You will not want to miss our further episodes. Once again, I'm JD LaRock, the President and CEO of NFTE. See you next time.
Entre News is a production of the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship. For more information, visit NFTE.com. Our theme song was produced by Sounds Like an Earful. To learn more, visit soundsLikeAnEarful.com.